Can you pick up the criminal complaint there? Can you just
Sure.
read the charges, first of all, that were brought against you by the Justice Department?
Sure. The first charge is entering and remaining in a restricted building or grounds, disorderly and disruptive conduct in a restricted building or grounds, disorderly or disruptive conduct in a Capitol building, parading, demonstrating, or picketing in any Capitol building.
And what was the last charge again?
It was called parading, demonstrating, or picketing in any Capitol building. That's 40 U.S.C. 5104.
And you pled guilty to that?
Yes, we've pled guilty to that.
And
one.
why did you do that?
We felt very highly compelled by the situation, as did a lot of other J6ers. Just a lot of pressure to take a charge, because if we didn't, there is what they call a penalty for that in the court system. So we had a really good attorney who advised us along the way, and we just decided to take the least of the misdemeanors that was in our plea agreement.
Take me back. You can go ahead. Let me put this out of the way.
Okay.
Take me back to January 6th and describe what you saw and what you did, you and your wife.
Excellent question. What we saw was the most amazing gathering of people ever. And we even climbed a tree, and we could not see the end of the crowd. And the people were having fun. It was a serious event, and we all knew it. And the people that converged on that place knew the reason that they were there was because they felt that the government was doing something that was against the Constitution and against our right to vote. So, but the people were friendly, joy-filled. Yeah, there's a few knuckleheads here and there like you'll get in any crowd, but I'm gonna guess it's 1 million people. And so we saw Trump speak. We were within eyeshot of Trump. It was a fabulous speech. He did say to march peacefully down there. And we went there specifically to have our voice heard and to see who our compatriots are in this country. And it was a phenomenal group of people.
And tell me, you got down there, and then what happened? What did you see?
Well, first of all the roads were blocked, and we stood in line for 2 hours in the cold for a subway, for a metro train, and found out it was closed after standing in line for 2 hours. So we walked all the way from Pentagon City, all the way to where the speech was near the ellipse. So my wife and I walked the whole way. So what we saw was it was inexplicably shut down. Dump trucks on entrance and exit ramps. It was kind of eerie in a sense. But as we walked all the way there, and the rally was amazing. And then we went to the Capitol, and then we walked all the way back to Pentagon City. That's what we had to do because of the logistics.
And what happened at the Capitol, and why were you charged, you think, on what happened at the Capitol?
So what happened at the Capitol, from what I personally saw, I can tell you what I think about what happened, what I saw, what else I saw. But what I saw was we were standing in the crowd on the mall side of the Capitol when a gunshot went off and a guy got hit in the face about 50 feet from us, and we so close that our eyes were watering, and we smelled the pepper gas, and the wind was blowing right in our direction. When that happened, I'm like, wait a minute, what's happening? Then all of a sudden, a bunch of flashbangs went off. So people were getting shot, hit with munitions from the police, but there was nobody confronting them. And what I saw was something that was illegal. We were there to exercise our free speech, and we have the right to voice our concern over especially something as egregious as what we believed was happening in the elections. So what I saw, there was an inflection point. Also going through the crowd were murmurings that Pence had sent this letter that no one could see until afternoon. So right before the proceedings, he said, I'm not gonna approve the alternate electors. Mm-hmm. And that's when people got upset and people started going in.
Did you and your wife go in, or were you outside?
We did. Frankly, we prayed about it beforehand. We weren't sure if this was a setup or, but we wanted our voice to be heard. We really kind of struggled with that decision, and we prayed, and we just felt God led us to go ahead and go in. And so we did.
Tell me, how'd you go in?
So on the mall side was where they had the scaffolding where they were doing some improvements to the building. So me and my little girl, we just climbed right up the scaffold, and we went in. There was no one, no barriers. There was nobody saying you can't go in there, and so we did. And
when you got there, were the doors open? And
doors were open.
In?
They were smashed. Okay, so that was my first clue. The doors were smashed, but the police were there, and they were basically ushering people in. And I couldn't figure out why they were doing that. Probably because there was a lot more of the people there than they were. So was it because of that, or was it something else? So I started to think something was a little different. And we went in.
When you were inside, where did you go? And did any officers ever tell you to leave?
No. So we went to Statuary Hall. And then we headed down another hallway. That totally elapsed time was about 12 minutes. So we were chanting, stop the steal. We knew that they could hear us from where we were, and that was good enough for us. So we went, and once we got to the rotunda area, then we were like, we heard some voices down the hall. Seriously, I knew those weren't Trump people. Immediately, I knew they weren't Trump people. I said, babe, it's time for us to go. Mm-hmm. And that's why we left.
And why did you and your wife decide to go in?
The reason that we decided to go in was because our vote was being stolen. We knew it was being stolen.
Let me ask you again. Why did you and your wife decide to go inside the Capitol building?
The reason we decided to go in is because we felt strongly that Congress needed to hear our voice while they were in session, because we believed wholeheartedly, and based on research and documents that we had, that our vote was stolen. That's why we went in. We were not going to stand for that, even at the risk of whatever was next. We just believed that we were led to go in because we needed to have a strong voice to our government, which we have the right to do. We have the right to free speech. So we exercised our right of free speech.
That's a pretty big step, isn't it? To actually go in and cross the barrier, when you see the doors smashed, to actually go in. That's like a leap of faith almost.
I believe that's what we did. We went by faith because we trusted that whatever was going to happen next, that God would take care of us.
What do you say to the people who believe you should be in jail, you should at least have a criminal conviction against you? Mm-hmm. What do you say to that?
Mm-hmm. Okay. So what we found is that, first of all, even our neighbors shunned us. So it's a great question because we've had to answer this question for ourselves many times. They're just misinformed. They just don't have enough information. My question to them would be, were you there? My question to them would be, where do you get your information that caused you to take that conclusion? What proof do you have that there was a violent insurrection? Was there violence there? Yes. If you want an insurrection and you have 500,000 people, then where were the guns? Where were the weapons? Where were people getting beat up and killed? The cops getting killed? Where was all the destruction? They could have took the White House down stone upon stone. There were not that many people. If there was an insurrection, where's the damage? Except for the front doors. Well, it was brought by, what I attended to was that the federal government was involved. By the time I had my interview, I already knew that because there was video, there was the X-Files, there was all kinds of proof, video proof, that there were federal agents in the building dressed as Trump supporters before it even opened. So let me ask you, how did the doors get broken? Well, we didn't have batons, bats, weapons to break down a door, but someone just happened to have those. Interesting. Mm-hmm. So we just felt like,
so you think federal investigators or federal agents or whatever pushed the crowd, basically, and led them into the Capitol building?
Based on the video I've seen, yes. Based on what I personally saw when I was there, no. There was no pushing, shoving, there was no barriers. We did notice in the morning that there were signs that said, "State grounds, do not enter." Well, guess what? When we got there about 12:30 or so, I guess, no signs. I was like, maybe they opened, who knows what's going on, but the signs were gone.
And who told you to leave? Did somebody tell you to leave, or did you guys just walk out eventually?
Well, because
you talked about you heard voices
down the hallway, and the things that the tone and the staccato of the voice was not our people. We know our people. We know Trump people, just regular Americans. But these people were a lot more serious about causing a ruckus. But we didn't see any feds pushing and shoving exactly where we were, but we did see it later on video.
So now you and your wife are pardoned.
Yes.
When you got that news, what went through your mind when you got the news that President Trump was pardoning you?
Eternal gratitude. I personally believe that God saved Donald J. Trump, just like he said in his speech, but it's real, that God saved him for this mission. And when he did what he said he was going to do, he said he was going to pardon. Then there was some vacillating was who's going to be pardoned, who's not going to be pardoned. But when I read I needed my proof, so I went to the White House website. It was posted up there, and the language of the EO, is that we were pardoned. We were just thanking God. We were praying. We were in joy. We were like trying to reassess how much of this burden are we going to carry, because it was quite a journey to be arrested that way. And so it just felt like a release. It felt like somewhat some exoneration. But again, to go back to your other question, there's a lot of people neighbors who still believe we should be in jail. So we're not done with the fallout of this yet, but we were elated and so eternally grateful to God and to Donald J. Trump.
What do you say to the police officers, their families, Capitol Police, DC officers who some lost their lives, some were hurt? I think 80 on U.S. Capitol, 60 on DC Police. What do you say to those families? Because obviously you're a minister.
Yes.
You have a lot of faith.
Yeah.
What do you say to them that some of those people were hurt?
Yeah, great question. Well, first of all, I'm sorry that they got hurt. That wasn't the objective. And so there were people there who created violence. And we won't know, but we will, who it was and what their purpose was. We don't know exactly what that is. And when I have friends who are cops, I have family that are fire people, they're first responders. Mm-hmm. It's a tough job, and thank you for your service. Thank you for putting yourself out there, and I'm sorry that you got injured. But I can say that if you know Trump people, if you know the people of middle America, just regular folks like me, that we're not there to hurt people, that we're there to have their voice heard, and things can get out of hand and scuffles can happen and stuff, but I think that what's been reported is a little overblown to what actually happened there. And yes, did they get hurt? Yes, they did. I don't know the circumstances of each and every situation, so who knows? But I'm very sorry that they got hurt, and I thank them for their service when I was there, and I thank them again.
If President Trump was right here, right now, what would you say to President Trump for pardoning you and your wife?
President Trump, thank you for doing the right thing. Thank you for listening to God and doing the right thing, regardless of the political fallout it may cause you. And I thank you from the bottom of my heart, because I have a family and I have a business that suffered under what happened, and we're so grateful that you pardoned us unconditionally, and now we're looking to pick up the pieces, get the burden off of us and the past behind us. But we still, President Trump, we want you to pursue exactly what happened in January 6, 2021. We know that there's a lot of nefarious things that happen, so please do not and relentlessly pursue what happened to get to the truth, and whatever the truth is, it is, and we will live with that.
Thomas, would you do it all over again?
100% yes. And I asked my wife that same question, and she would say yes too. We would do it all over again, because remember, we felt that we were compelled by God to go and have our voice heard, because we need to stand up for our Constitution, which comes from God's will and His commands. And so we believed that they were dishonoring God, and we weren't going to stand for that.
And my last question, the DOJ arrested hundreds of people and prosecuted a lot of people. Do you think it was overblown? Or do you think they were right to prosecute those people and arrest those people, including yourself?
I think what we'll find is that it was overblown. I think there was a lot of instances where they made stuff up. I can be specific if you want, but they made stuff up about me, and not a surprise based on what we've seen from the top down in the administration of the FBI. But what I was, I was trying to turn that. Okay,
it's okay.
I lost the question.
Go ahead.
Loudon Times.
Do you think the DOJ, they arrested hundreds of people, charged hundreds of people, do you think they blew this thing up out of proportion, or was all their arrests, all their charges, everything they did, their investigation justified?
Well, I think they thought they were justified, but the law doesn't say that. The law says, and in the Fisher case, my attorney was one of the attorneys that settled that case in favor of the plaintiff. In the Fisher case, it says right in Section 3 that the Biden government, the DOJ and the FBI, sought to criminalize freedom of speech. Okay, so that is overblowing their cause, their case. And so I know that people, like for myself, they were waiting for my sentencing or for my pre-sentencing hearing in order to trap me. They wanted to do the Fisher on me. There was a thing in my documents that said that I lied about my firearms, but it was in fact the magistrate of the DC court that lied, not me. Mm-hmm. And it's on tape, the FBI. But so yes, overblown. I approached my interrogators at the FBI and I said, look, we didn't do anything wrong. It's like they knew. It's almost like they knew. And when I was strip searched, when I was brought into the jail, I was strip searched right in a huge hallway with boys, girls, everybody coming through. And the jailer said, let me guess, J6. And then I said, yeah. He goes, I hate when they do that. So even from the feds, they hated that they brought all of us in, just regular people, and were putting us through this.
And talk about the arrest. Did they come to the house, or talk about the day that they arrested you and your wife?
Sure. So I heard a rustle in the front. I thought, it was garbage day, so maybe garbage came early. It's kind of still dark. It was about 6:04 in the morning. So I just lifted the curtain after I heard something else. I lifted the curtain a little bit, and boom, big flash, big spotlight. This is the FBI. Come out with your hands up. They're 20 feet from each neighbor. Driveway full of SWAT vehicles. We guessed that there was about 40 people total that came to arrest us. I'm like, guys, why didn't you just call me? Why didn't you just call me to come in? By the time, there was a loud pounding, and it got louder because I was, I had to put something on. So I got to the door, I opened the door, I said, I'm opening my door, I'm not gonna resist you, I'm coming out. I didn't want to get my head blown off, but when I got out there, 4 M4s about this far from my head, fully kitted, knee pads, shoulder pads, you name it, everything they had. Lots of rounds, laser, knife.
So the guns trained on you.
Monty. Guns trained on me. So my wife, I had woke her up, and so she was coming. She had called my friend. By the time she got to that walkway, one false move, and I believe they would have shot her. Because the warnings that they were giving her did not match her actions. So it was a pretty serious situation. So they took us out. I was in stocking feet. It was raining. My little girl was paraded down the driveway. I was put, in a different car and processed in the car, and, they zip your hands and your feet, and I've got a T-shirt on. It's wet now.
And you think that was all unnecessary?
100% unnecessary, because, hey Tom, we have a warrant for your arrest. Can you come on down? I said sure.
Mm-hmm. Did investigators, the federal government, put any pressure on you not to talk to the media while they're going through your court trial, or did they never ever mention anything like that?
No, they didn't mention anything, but my attorney did, which we complied with. Right. And, this is the next day after the pardon, and you're the first person I'm talking to. So, no, they didn't. Because I've done a lot of ministry, a lot of advanced ministry work. I know a mind game when I see it. So it was a total mind game, the interview. And so I knew that. And so I just told the truth straight up. I didn't try to lose eye contact. They asked me appropriate questions, I believe. They said, you have the option to not answer. I said, that's fine. I said what I said. It's all there in my transcript. It's pretty accurate, okay?
Were you and your wife ever worried about going to jail and being locked up in prison for a couple of years?
Yeah, absolutely. By pleading out to the lesser of the misdemeanors, we could face 0 to 1 year in jail and up to $100,000 each fine. And then in our pre-sentencing hearing, the Judge Kelly, who surprisingly is a Trump appointee, he basically said, I kind of lost my train of thought.
That's okay. Let me ask you this. Do you have anything else to add? Did you want to say anything else? I think we kind of covered everything, but I just want to give you an opportunity if you wanted to say anything else.
Mm-hmm. I kind of do, yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I never lost for words.
Go ahead.
So right now, today, what you're seeing by talking to me is going to unfold thousands of times across the country. The news is going to come out. There's going to be investigations about what really happened that day. But if you want to know what really happened, sir, pick up the congressional record from January 6, 2021. The government itself documented every single thing that happened on the congressional floor that day. You read that and you tell me that it wasn't a government insurrection against the President of the United States, Donald J. Trump. So he's back, unfortunately for them, and fortunately for the rule of law, unfortunately for our Constitution of the United States, which we insist that he uphold. We want to be safe, do your job. And he, I believe Trump's going to do it. He did it before, but I'm so grateful that God, it's literally a miracle. And I'm not kidding. It's in the true sense of the word miracle that Trump won this election. And I know that because we studied elections. So I'm so grateful that he's in. I'm grateful that he's in. Now, we trust 100% that he's going to get the job done like he said he would. And I'm proof of that, standing right here, that we got our pardon.